Imagine this for a second. You're not doing anything reckless. You're not gambling. You're not blowing money on luxury vacations. You're just trying to get through a normal Tuesday. You wake up late, you rush out the door, you turn the key in your car, and for half a second, everything feels fine. Then a warning light flicks on. Not flashing, just sitting there, quiet, ominous. You already know what it means. You also know what your bank account looks like. The mechanic would probably charge a few $100s to fix it now, but you don't have a few $100s. You have enough to survive until payday, and not much more. So you do what millions of people do every day. You ignore it, you convince yourself it's probably nothing. You promise you'll deal with it soon. Weeks pass, then one day the car doesn't make it home. Now you're stranded, you need a tow, you miss work. The original issue has multiplied into a much bigger one. What could have been a manageable expense has turned into a financial emergency that wipes out months of progress. From the outside, people call this irresponsibility. From the inside, it feels like gravity. This isn't bad luck. It isn't poor decision making. It's something far more predictable. It's the financial reality of having no margin for error. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Today, we're not talking about hustle culture, passive income, or the fantasy of getting rich overnight. We're talking about something quieter and more brutal, why having less money makes everything cost more. In dollars, in time, and in mental energy. Yeah, being broke isn't just hard, it's expensive. Most financial advice starts from the same assumption that money problems are caused by personal behavior. Spend less, budget harder, show discipline, skip the small luxuries, .canal subscriptions. That advice sounds reasonable until you actually run the numbers. There's a concept in economics that explains what's really happening, and it didn't come from a textbook. It came from fiction. It's often called the Boots theory. The idea is simple. Someone with money can afford things that last. Someone without money can only afford what's cheap right now, even if it costs more in the long run. One person buys a high-quality item once and uses it for years. Another buys a low-quality version again and again because they never have enough upfront cash to escape the cycle. The result? The person with less money ends up paying more over time. This isn't about shoes. It's about how poverty forces you into bad math, and this math shows up everywhere. Take something as boring as household supplies. If you have extra cash, you buy in bulk. You pay less per unit, you reduce trips to the store, you lock in savings. If you don't, you buy what you can afford today. Smaller quantities, higher prices, no buffer. Same product, different price, different outcome. Your personal inflation rate is higher simply because you can't buy ahead. That's the poverty premium, and it doesn't stop at groceries. It gets much uglier once you step into the financial system. Banks love customers with money. They waive fees. They offer perks. They reward stability. But if your balance runs low, the rules change instantly. One mistake, one forgotten charge, one automatic payment you didn't account for. Suddenly, you're hit with penalties that dwarf the original transaction. You didn't borrow hundreds of dollars, you borrowed a few. But the cost looks like payday lending. If any individual charged interest like that, it would be illegal. When institutions do it, it's policy. This is how money quietly flows upward, not through massive theft, but through friction, fees, penalties, fine print. The people least able to afford mistakes are charged the most for making them. And it doesn't end with banks. Credit works the same way. If you already have money, borrowing is cheap. If you don't, borrowing is punishing. Interest rates aren't just about risk, they're about leverage. The less room you have to maneuver, the more expensive every decision becomes, which brings us to transportation. In many places, a car isn't optional, it's survival. If you have savings and decent credit, you buy reliability. Something boring, something that runs forever. If you don't, you buy access. You accept high interest, inflated prices, and fragile machinery because you need to get to work tomorrow. And when that fragile system breaks, it doesn't just cost money, it costs income, stability, momentum. This is how people get stuck paying for problems they didn't choose. Housing follows the same pattern. Rent requires no savings, but it demands constant payment. Ownership requires upfront capital, but it builds security. If you can't save because rent eats most of your income, you're locked into paying more each month for something you'll never own. It's not just more expensive, it's permanent. You're renting your shelter, your transportation, your money, and your peace of mind. And then there's the cost no spreadsheet ever shows: time. When you don't have resources, everything takes longer. More travel, more waiting, more coordination, more stress. Tasks that take minutes for someone with stability can consume hours for someone without it. Laundry, groceries, appointments, repairs. Time drains away, and time is opportunity. Time is rest. Time is recovery. Lose enough of it, and your future earning potential shrinks. Psychology makes this worse. Living with constant financial pressure changes how your brain works. Research shows that scarcity reduces cognitive capacity. When survival dominates your thoughts, long-term planning collapses. This is why bad decisions cluster around financial stress. Not because people are careless, but because they're overloaded. The system punishes you for reacting instead of planning, then blames you for the reaction. So what's the escape? It's not investing, it's not side hustles, it's not optimizing credit card points. The first real goal isn't growth, it's relief, stopping the penalties, breaking the cycle where small problems become disasters. That's why the most powerful financial milestone isn't wealth, it's buffer. A small emergency fund changes everything. Not because it earns returns, but because it prevents losses. It turns crises into inconveniences. It lets you fix problems early. Buy once instead of repeatedly. Say no to predatory terms. Liquidity isn't glamorous, but it's freedom. Once you have even a little margin, your options multiply, costs drop, stress fades, decisions improve. This is where the game flips. You stop asking, can I afford the payment? And start asking, what does this cost me over time? You stop optimizing for today and start protecting tomorrow. The system doesn't want you thinking this way. It profits from churn, from fees, from replacements, from urgency. When you learn the math, you become a worse customer and a better steward of your own life. So here's the practical move. Audit your personal poverty tax. Find the places where not having money is costing you more money. Interest, fees, replacements, time. Pick the biggest one. Then focus everything on eliminating that single penalty, even if it means short-term sacrifice. Because every leak you plug makes the next one easier. This isn't fair. It never was. Climbing from zero is brutally hard. The effort isn't proportional. The slope is steepest at the bottom. But once you understand that the struggle isn't a moral failure, it's a structural equation, you can stop blaming yourself and start attacking the mechanics. You don't need to win overnight, you just need to stop bleeding, buy the thing that lasts, build the buffer, reduce friction, and eventually, step by step, the math starts working for you instead of against you. If this reframed how you see money, not as discipline, but as physics, share it with someone who's stuck in the same loop. These traps thrive in silence. And the sooner we name them, the sooner we walk out of them. Dry feet, solid ground, and finally moving forward.